Okay, so jumping into things here, on the top left, we have the American Terran representing Virtus Pro. It's Astrea.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have the Peruvian Protoss player, the red Protoss representing Team New Angels. It is Mute.
So are you familiar with Mute's playstyle, generally speaking? Is he a bit more of a defensive reactionary guy, or does he like to get in your face?
Yeah, he's a little bit more defensive, a little bit more mid-game oriented. Mute actually used to be a competitor a couple of years ago, like I'm talking like 2016, 2017. Then he retired, he stepped away. I think he went by a different ID back then. And more recently, he came back and kind of showed up the NA ladder quite quickly.
A guy in my chat here says, Mute is a gateway man.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I think yeah, this guy was introducing me to himself earlier. He's his ID is SC2 Nazgul, and I was like, yeah, no, I think the odds that Nazgul, actual Nazgul, is in my chat right now pretty slim, considering this is like my second stream.
Nah, the real Nazgul, confirmed. Let's go.
No, the Mexican Nazgul is the real Nazgul, man.
There you go.
Oh man, but yeah, overall things opening up pretty standard here. Cyber core being thrown down after the gateway, multiple early gateway shenanigans, and the Nexus as a follow-up as well.
Yeah, standard opener out of Mutes. Meanwhile, Astrea going for double gas, going for a safer opener. As you mentioned, I'm also really fascinated to see how Astrea does play this out. We were casting Astrea versus Neuro earlier in a TBZ, and Astrea was playing very bio-heavy, very kind of going for 2-1-1s, very bio-oriented. But yeah, how's he compare here to Mute? As that's a cheeky SCV towards the bottom right.
And do we think the reactor in the main here is going to stay on the barracks, or do you think it's going to switch over to the factories for perhaps some Widow Mine production?
I'm feeling Hellions. I'm feeling Proxy Starport. Yeah, there we go. Starport has been proxied. This should be for a medevac for a Hellion drop into the main.
Okay, big plays coming out of Astrea here. I'm really curious how this sort of thing is going to go down.
Those are not Hellions.
oh, it's Cyclones. Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, this just got spicier. I suppose the pivotal thing for Mute at the moment might be scouting this starport, but it is in sort of a precarious spot. It might be kind of difficult to end up scouting that one.
Yeah, Astrea has options. This could be a Cyclone drop. Okay, I was gonna say it could also be a proxy liberator for like a multi-pronged aggression with Cyclones and a lib, but no, it is gonna be the medevac. So yeah, this is a unique build. Cyclone drops like this are not really a thing. They're not really meta. So yeah, you mentioned before that Astrea can be quite creative, and that's being showcased here.
The Cyclones are going to get spotted, I think, by this Phoenix, hallucinated Phoenix, and that's a pretty big find already. Now, he does, know at least that these are out on the map. Now, does he know that a medevac is going to fly into his main? I don't think so.
Yeah, like, again, Cyclone drop is just not what you're thinking in this kind of game state. It's going to be a Cyclone drop followed by the Proxy Liberator as well, so Astrea, he doubles down.
Okay, so these Cyclones are being unloaded into the main here. They're flying in. Now, this is the first that Mute is going to see of this. A couple workers going to get taken out right away. The one stalker can't really engage here until his reinforcing buddies get brought over, but I think we're going to see some fancy pickup drop micro, and indeed we are. And we are seeing the first stalker go down before the first Cyclone. The sentry goes down as well. Okay, one Cyclone does indeed go down. The medevac is on very, very low health, but my goodness, he's being pushed out of his main at the moment, and this Proxy Liberator is just about to pop out as well.
Yeah, very nice control here from Astrea, just out microing now to trading his opponents. We do have 2 more Cyclones being dropped into the main. There's 2 Stalkers left, but again, it's going to be 3 Cyclones, and that one Liberator, as you mentioned, is also coming in.
Oof. Yeah, now I'm wondering, is it's going to reinforce this position here, or is it going to swing around to wreak havoc onto the natural?
Yeah, Liberator is on the way. For now, we have control of the main. We're going for the pile. We're going to be depowering the gateway.
Oh my goodness, yeah, and obviously, researching anything with the Twilight Council is not something that was going to happen at the moment, but losing that gateway is really just awful. Now he's down to 1 gateway production, and the additional gateway and the robotics facility are quite a ways out. Another pylon going down, and this one will actually lead to a supply block.
Yeah, the pylon is so low. Mew will barely save it. Stutter stepping forward, but loses another Stalker. There's 1 Stalker left, and again, it looks like he goes for the medevac.
And the Liberator does go ahead and swing around and park itself outside the natural here, and it is going to come in from this really funny angle for Liberator, but it's going to shut down mining here completely. on this second Nexus, and oh gosh, this is really just awful. He's got 27 workers bunched up in the corner there. The Liberator repositioning to make itself extra obnoxious. The tank sieging outside the natural here, but a Zealot jumping on top of it right away.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we can only warp in 1 unit at a time. Second gateway is just now finishing up. The Stalker will deal with the Liberator. We do have some Cyclones wasting some DPS in the main on the gas guys, but for the most part, Mute, he is just stuck on one base. Things have been going from weird to even weirder as Astrea is expanding back at home.
This has really been something of a game. My God, it's really, really mean. Max is kind of styling on him right now.
Yeah, it's a wild build, and he's finally going to be cleaned up in the main base. Finally, Mute can start saturating his main as well, but Astrea isn't done. He's been massing up tanks, massing up Marines. Now, these are vanilla Marines, so there's no stim, there's no combat shields, but these tanks, they can try to get within range of the production on the low ground.
And Mute's also SimCity'd himself out of, he's got to walk all the way around the Nexus here if he wants to go into the main now. I don't think that's something that Astrea is necessarily aware of or thinking about at the moment, but 3 tanks here are going to start leapfrogging forward, and the shield battery is going to be overcharged, and the Zealot does get on top, and 1 Marine, 2 Marines remain, but these siege tanks are going to reign supreme.
Yeah, even with the overcharge, the siege tank, they just out DPS. They shut down the Immortal. The Immortal went down, and now we're down to 2 Zealots and a Stalker. Again, this isn't the strongest army for Astrea. It looks like he is going to be forced back. It's going to be some expensive losses losing these tanks, but again, Astrea has a better economy behind this. He can somewhat sustain some of these losses.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's been mining more consistently for this entire time. You know, he's been able to just focus and get everything he wants to get done. We see combat shields fired up, stim about halfway done, and the production cycles are going to start to pile up here if Protoss doesn't get something done real soon.
Yeah, as Astrea is getting into a 3rd CC, Stim is not quite yet done, but we'll have enough to deter and zone away the Gateway army, and Mute even across the map losing so many probes. The second Liberator has arrived. That Starport still coming in clutch, getting 9 probe kills.
Yeah, things are, they went from weird to weirder, now they're just bad. This is a really rough situation. We're looking at a 10 worker deficit on top of the mules, and you know, income advantage right now is really not too you know, in favor of either player, but with these mules dropping, I think we are going to start to see a bit of a shift in that.
Yeah, definitely. As the game progresses, Astrea, he's building up further and further ahead. Mute has to do something crazy to bounce back, but he's still stuck at home, still stuck defending against the Liberator. He is amassing a lot of Zealots, and Charge Dots can deal with the composition that Astrea is working with if Astrea is caught out in the open, if he's caught out on the map.
The fact that this starport has been able to just sit here and continue to produce is pretty emblematic of the state of the game.
Yeah, it's again like Mute, he just can't move out. That's the problem. He's stuck at home. The entire game state is essentially he just hasn't been able to scout, hasn't been able to shut down any of the production, and eventually he will be able to move out. And again, he still has a decent army with all these Zealots. Astrea does scout there, he does confirm.
And the Robo Bay is finishing up as well, so the splash damage is going to start to get out, you know, into production here for the Protoss. Do you think he might elect for Disruptors as a bit of a comeback unit?
I mean, that would be a wild move. I'm not against it, right? Like, especially if you're behind, Disruptors can help you bounce back. It's high risk, high reward. We'll see what Mute goes for. I don't know if there's necessarily a wrong answer for Mute, as he's still stuck on one base economy.
And this Liberator is, you know, so low health, but still dishing out so much damage. The Stalker is, I think, going to get taken out. Okay, no. It does go ahead and take out the Liberator. That's really nice. Oh, but these Zealots are theoretically going to get caught out on the map here, but they do go ahead and rotate back towards the natural. Oh, not quite. Getting caught without the batteries would be really rough here.
Yeah, you can see Astrea, he wants that Immortal. The Immortal takes a lot of hits. Charge just now does finish, and Astrea has to be careful. He has to respect the charge lots as they do turn back around. Otherwise...
Yeah, no, the charge lots, I think you're just going to dish out too much damage. Now, with the Widow Mines coming up, that really does fuzzy up the math here quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Thankfully, Mute does spot the Widow Mines with the Observer, so he's fully aware that Astrea was trying to drag him into that minefield. Mute just going to slowly try and take a 3rd base, trying to expand, and try to stabilize from this point forward.
Yeah, we do see Colossus Tech being the choice. Thermal Lance underway. But we are also starting to see like a 30-40 supply advantage build up here on the side of Terran. The 3rd base is fully operational, oversaturated, where the 3rd base of Protoss is only about a quarter of the way done.
Exactly. Mute's like stabilizing or defending is not going to be good enough. He has to do something more to come back in this game. But as he tries to, we see Astrea rallying across the map now with Vikings, now with more Widow Mines. Astrea, he's going to try to push in.
A well-positioned observer here is going to give Mute the information that he needs on the movement of the Terran army, but I don't know how much that's really going to matter. Now, you know, once a battery finishes up here, that does bolster the position somewhat if it can get overcharged, but it's only one battery. A couple more got to get thrown down, but Mute, you know, he's starved for money. He really doesn't have the money to be throwing down all this static D.
Yeah, exactly. As Astrea, he's slowly pushing forward. The observer is spotted. The observer is going to be going down, but at least Mute is aware of the minefield and he will respect it, will pull away. 2 mine shots going to be going up, and Mute, he will just back off and stay on top of that ramp. Again, he doesn't want to push into those winter mines.
And the first Vikings showing up here are really... Oh, now excellent force fields. Does catch a lot of the army here. The Colossus are able to get off a decent number of shots. The mines really cleaning up those Zealot numbers, so Mute's got to disengage for the moment.
Yeah, the winter mines, they punish the engage of Mute. He has to back off. He has to respect this position. And Astrea, he reinforces, gaining more ground. And suddenly that Zealot army is... It's not there anymore. He's going for a counterattack, which means Astrea, he can go for the Colossus.
Yeah, no, we do see him dive in for this Colossus there. Now, these Marauders are getting on top of the third base here. The angle is really good for Astrea at the moment. Now, the Vikings are not able to dish out as much damage as they might like, so the Colossus are standing strong.
Yeah, they barely do stand strong. The base is under fire. At the same time, Mew going for a massive Zealot run by. Will get some damage done. Astrea doesn't have many reinforcements back at home, but the Colossus are being hunted down, taking a lot of hits.
Yeah, no, I unfortunately, you know, I think Mute has been really fighting his heart out, but with that third base going down, the economy is just absolutely falling apart. We're looking at a 70-80 supply advantage in favor of Astrea right now, and GG gets called.
GG gets called. Astrea, he did struggle a little bit in game 1. We did miss out on that first game, but he bounces back here in game 2, and we are going to the ace match.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, Mute fighting well. This felt a little bit similar to the Beyond versus Astrea match in the sense that, obviously, while the builds were wildly different, you know, the flow of the game was similar. Protoss was on the back foot from so early on.
Exactly, and I don't blame Mutes because it was a very wild build. Like proxy starport into a cyclone drop you don't often see, and it came down to the control to the micro of Astrea. He was barely able to out control his opponent and pick off StarCraft. So StarCraft snowball from there. It was just a very chaotic start.
Yeah, and you know, this is the type of stuff that, like, I feel like I love to see, in the sense that, you know, there's just a wide playbook of stuff that you can see out of Terran, and that's, like, I think, you know, one of the things that makes them so deadly at the moment in the current meta is, you know, Terran has just such a huge variety of openings that they can really go for, and it can look extremely aggressive and not be, or vice versa, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, and I'm curious what kind of aggression we're going to see here from Astrea. Again, I'm sure he has plenty more builds up his sleeve. I'm sure we only have seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what Astrea can do in this matchup. I don't know what to expect. I just want to watch.
Yeah, no, I hope it's something as creative as that.
We'll see. Likewise, we'll see if Mute can keep up with the creativity of his opponents. We'll see if he can keep up with the aggression of Astrea. Going to be loading into Side Delta, a much larger map compared to Ghost River. As a result, rushing into that kind of aggression for Astrea is not going to be as successful. He's going to have to try to approach this in a different way.
Bull my Oja really with the self-deprecation right now. It's so funny. Yeah, no, it's great stuff. Yeah, the StarCraft community never ceases to amaze me, you know, like, literally days pass where, you know, we get some kind of bad news where things are you know, offline for the moment. I think, you know, I have high hopes that we're going to see some cool stuff for the upcoming year, but, you know, in the meantime, you see these events get thrown together in what feels like a matter of moments.
Yeah, you know, we were expressing that earlier about how it's really great to see the StarCraft community rise up and kind of very quickly kind of step in the place of ESL. We may have lost, you know, a bunch of weeklies, but we have replaced them real quick.
Absolutely, and jumping into the ace match of the first ever Ursasaurus TV Cup, the match between Astrea, spawning in the top left here as the American Terran, and...
And so I thought you were going to say something else. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have the Peruvian Protoss player, the red Protoss, being forced into the ace match. Can he bring it back? It is Mute.
Yeah, no, it's so funny because, like, I was like, oh man, the way I phrase this, like we've got to introduce both players as part of the sentence. So I was like, I'll just drop off my sentence here and hope that
just cut off mid-speech. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
Listen, procaster, buddy.
It's fine. It's fine.
That's oh, lovely, man. Okay, question. If I'm an observer and I ping on the map, the players cannot see this, right?
No, they can't see. No.
Thank goodness. I did it earlier by accident, and I was like, I'm gonna commit seppuku right now, man.
It's okay. Likewise, you know, they can only see you. They can only notice things if you're a ref, if you're a referee in the lobby. But I believe we're just spectators, just observers.
Yeah, spectator is all I want to be. The ability to influence the game and bother these pros in any way would kill me.
Mm-hmm. Oh good.
But okay, yeah, we do see the probe coming across the map here, getting some scouting done. I do love to see something like that, like lifting up the depot just to make the path slightly longer and theoretically maybe pick off that probe. But Mute running across the map, saving that probe.
Yeah, Mute will confirm this time it's going to be a more economic opener. As a reminder, last game Astrea went double gas. This time just a Rax expand, so a little bit more economic, more greedy here, more macro oriented from Astrea. Nothing too wild this time in the early game.
Yeah, no, I'm really curious to see how a game might look out of Astrea if he plays a bit more of a standard style here as Terran.
Oh yeah. I'm curious as well to see how he does approach it. Likewise, I'm sure Muse is going to have a better opportunity to spread his wings. Clearly he can against Astrea. We missed out on game 1. We don't know how wild, how aggressive, or how normal it was, but Mute was able to prove himself earlier in the series, so I want to believe he can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we are going to see Hellion be the first choice here for Astrea to produce out of this factory. So, some light aggression, I suppose, will be coming, trying to pick off a couple probes.
Yeah, it does opt to deny, or does opt to actually cancel the Hellion, going and setting up for a Widowmine drop instead, just for some scouting information, just for some damage. I mean, regardless whether it was a Hellion or a Widowmine, both would have the same role of trying to scout across the map. We have the luxury of seeing that Mute is going for the Twilight Council.
Definitely, and I'm assuming we're going to see the same type of blink play that we I've seen at the last couple PVTs.
Oh yeah, Blink is a very standard follow-up here just for some map control. Hallucination Scout comes in, and we will be able to get a full scout of the main base, making sure there's no crazy 3 racks, no fast 30C. Mute confirms the 1-1-1.
Yeah, things progressing pretty normally so far this game. I'm curious to see if we're going to see any major deviations, or are we going to go into a very normal-looking PvT mid-game.
So if everything's looking normal, the Widowmine drop does move out across the map. You mentioned before, you were talking about, Pro League back in the day and stuff. I imagine you've been watching StarCraft for a long time?
Yeah, I got into StarCraft, loosely, late 2010, and then more seriously, I guess you could say maybe, 2012, I started watching, a bulk majority of the matches, things like that, yeah.
Okay, so still in Wings of Liberty, still.
Oh, yeah. I got into StarCraft and Wings of Liberty. I remember my friend who I was actually casting with earlier, he's not, super duper into StarCraft the way that he was anymore when we were younger, but he's actually the person who introduced me to the game. And for the first few months, he gave me all of his battle passes. And that was my first exposure to the game. I made a new account every 2 weeks.
Yeah. God, those are the days. I was going to say that they lasted only 2 weeks, because back then you had to pay for the game as well. A very different kind of setup, very different dynamic, but really cool to hear that you're still interacting with him, and he was even casting with you earlier, despite, it being so many years.
Absolutely, yeah. No, my buddy Andrew and I have remained really tight over the years, and with my entry into the StarCraft scene as a creator, I think that really reignited his interest in the game, as well as as a supportive role, but also just being exposed to all the awesomeness that's happening in StarCraft all the time by me.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear. Speaking of awesomeness, the aggression has begun. We have a Liberator into the main, we have a Widowmine drop threatening the natural, and we have the main army here in the center of the map. So Astrea going for a tri-pronged attack. Damage is being done. Probes are going down in the main base, and he's looking for an opening with that main army.
Yeah, the Observer getting a scout here on the sieged up position of Astrea. Sieged out a little bit far here, just playing a light contain at the moment. With the second siege tank coming down, we're going to start to see some leapfrogging forward here. The Stalkers, you know, picking off a couple Marines here, but at the expense of some hull damage and a Stalker.
Yeah, Stalker goes down. Astrea's going to be rotating again. He's still threatening the other bases with that drop play as well. He's gaining ground, and he's actually sneaking up on top of that third base.
Oh, yeah, this little pack of Marines here are going to dish out some damage, but they are going to have to pull back into the range of the tank, so no damage really able to be put out onto the base yet. I do wonder if we're going to see another tanks perhaps be sort of swinging down.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, at the same time as Astrea was distracting, he goes for the drop into the natural. He gets 11 probe kills, liberated to the main base as well, does distract, and Astrea even saves that Widowmine still here outside of the natural.
Yeah, that was some really brilliant tactical play there by Astrea, really pulling the attention of Mute apart and really, you know, seeing some significant rewards for that.
Yeah, definitely. As the Widowmine is finally going to be cleaned up, but it has more than paid for itself. Behind this, we do have a third CC on the way. Astrea is not going for an all-in. He backs off, he saves his tanks, he saves his Marines, is getting ready for a longer game.
Earlier, this Nazgul fellow was like, "Hey, no, what do you mean? The first game was a normal macro game."
True.
Actually, no, he's referring to the game we missed. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I was thinking like the last game. I was like, "Oh, dude, this guy's a memer." Okay, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that actually does tell us something, right? Protoss was able to pull it out during the normal macro game.
Yeah, and that's kind of the direction that we're headed in. I mean, Astrea did do a lot of economic damage early on, so he's had a very nice start to the game, but Mute is looking to stabilize, getting into Colossus production.
Yeah, a couple of Widowmines out on the map here. You know, good scouting information, able to pick off anything that comes their way. Nothing really has yet, but I like the idea. Xenothermal Lance gets fired up. It's about 10% the way done.
Yeah, he's working on those upgrades. Fourth Nexus now on the way. Mute is building up. Still has yet to take extra gases at his third. Is looking to go for a more zealot-heavy composition to support his army, but still working towards a longer game stage. Just vying for map control. No major aggression yet.
And the map actually just littered with Widowmines at the moment. There's really not a very safe or unscouted path for Protoss to push out on, even though he's, you know, poking around and looking for something. Now, with that fourth base coming down, we are starting to see, you know, Protoss gain some real footing in this game. You know, Terran does eventually need to get something done.
Yeah, as, again, we do see Mute basically stabilizing and recovering from the damage dealt early on. The Colossus kind of getting higher. As it gets higher, we can head towards Disruptors as well. So the pressure is soon going to be on Astrea, and as it's being on him, he is moving out.
Yeah, we see some great movement here by Astrea. Now, Protoss reacting in time. You know, moving up to the top side here, there is a really nice zealot buffer for these Colossus, and then another Colossus joining the forces here. It's a pretty formidable army, but these tanks getting into excellent position with tons of Widowmines for cover.
Yeah, they have that Widowmine support. Meanwhile, we have initial force field. Not too many sentries left over. Not too many force fields left remaining here for Mute. Is trying to buy some time, but Astrea does have the supply lead. He's gaining ground.
Okay, Observer flying over, you know, keeping an eye on the Terran army, getting sieged up here. Now, yep, I'm assuming Astrea is going to see that with the animation, and unfortunately that Observer does get picked off. We see a huge Zealot run by, swinging up the bottom left side of the map here, going unscouted to the moment, but oh, these Widowmines dishing out some serious damage on the way.
Yeah, they will scout more importantly, so Astrea is fully aware of that run by, and back at home he has reinforcements. Another mine shot goes off, and the Zealot run by should not get much done. Does dive into the mineral line, but Astrea should be able to deal with it.
Yeah, unfortunately just A-clicking, so they didn't really get to stick on top of those SCVs, but actually one is wreaking some havoc. Now, we do see a major fight going in the favor of Protoss as well, though Stalker is getting a little bit overzealous and blinking forward, but the tanks do get cleared, and the Colossus now really are reigning supreme in this fight.
Yeah, Mute shuts down the tanks, he shuts down the Widowmines. He will finally break out and force Astrea back home. And not just that, but also Mute hasn't lost any of his economy. His probes have been left alone. He's on 4-base economy. Astrea did lead out some SCVs, so Mute, he's recovering, getting up to 3 Colossus, and can soon snowball from here.
Yeah, the 5th base just gets thrown down. Now, we do see the 4th getting planted down for Astrea and just starting to be morphed into a planetary fortress. A bunch of mules being called down to that location, so we are going to see the mineral income of Astrea spike.
Yeah, it is going to spike up so he can maintain himself, getting into Ghost production behind this for EMPs. I'm a little bit surprised that Mute is getting into a 4th Colossus. Usually 4 is overkill, and he's actually getting a 5th. Okay, there we go. He cancels the 5th Colossus, has started Immortals instead.
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely need those Immortals. I feel like there's something about the Immortal. It feels like a bit of a safety blanket for a Protoss army, you know? There's just so much health there, and the damage they're able to dish out is really amazing. Now, we do see a little hit force of Astreas coming down the bottom left side here. The Protoss army is a little bit out of location, so I do think this 5th base expansion is kind of exposed. Now, there is a spotter pylon, so he will be able to rotate down, but a little bit of a slow reaction time, and I don't think the 1 Colossus, 1 Immortal force is going to be able to do anything here, but that's what's coming towards Astrea, and this might just be free lunch.
Yeah, it does
he gets to cancel. Yeah.
I mean, could even threaten the Colossus itself. Mute, he spotted the army towards the north, so he rotated north instead, and he was pulled apart. He was distracted. A split push by Astrea does kill the expansion, does force a cancel. So nice moves here from Astrea.
And still, there really is no defending forces here. We're looking at 1 Colossus, 1 Immortal. This is not going to be enough to... Now, this is a really overstimmed set of units now. And the major fight is happening up here. Now, we do have already like 5 or 6 Ghosts, but the Zealots jumping on top of them is pretty good.
Yeah, 1 Ghost goes down. There was a solid EMP on the Zealot, so Mute has to pull back, has to pull away, resaturating his army, and still no disruptors. Beside all, the Colossus has stopped robot production here, and Mute, his army composition is looking a little bit lackluster, looking very vulnerable to Ghosts, to EMPs.
Absolutely. Now, we do see a Stargate being thrown down. And so now I'm wondering, is this going to be a late-game Stargate transition? We see a couple more High Templars being morphed in as well, presumably to be morphed into Archons.
Yeah, interesting. I was waiting for disruptors, but it looks like Mute wants to go into, as you mentioned, Sky Toss with a fleet beacon with carriers, but it takes a long time to get there.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's what, like at least 6 or 7 minutes away from having any meaningful carrier count, maybe even more, like 10 minutes, and I don't think Astrea is going to let him breathe for that long. The army is just so much more technical for Terran right now. The Vikings are getting in and getting some pot shots off onto these Colossus. Now, this is a huge Protoss army. It's not to be taken lightly, but overall, I think the technical forces of Terran here are going to be difficult to deal with.
Well, the worrisome thing is that there's barely any anti-air, and 2 Colossus go down. The Vikings, they reign supreme. They just shut down 2 Colossus almost for free. Some of them are going to be going down. Meanwhile, Astrea, he races back home. He has some SimCity to work with, has a planetary as well, has a choke point, and Mute's going to have a harder time gaining ground here.
Yeah, no, I mean, at the moment, we really can't see Terran take a fight, but as those additional forces come out, as he puts himself into these little, corners with the SimCity, I think, there's definitely a lot of ground for Astrea left, a lot of ground for him to retreat still.
Yeah, and he snipes another Colossus. There's 1 Colossus left. That is all the splash damage that Mute has. There's no Storm, there's no Disruptors, and with that, Mute, he just cannot push forward. More Vikings are amassing. Astrea's army is just getting larger and larger, and eventually he'll be able to force this back.
And we're seeing the air production of Astrea switch over to Liberators as well, 3 being pumped out at a time.
Yeah, we spoke about the limited anti-air that Mute has. Astrea noticed as well. Liberator is going to be amazing against this army, and he comes in for the dive, takes down the final Colossus.
Oh, now, but there's a huge, massive Protoss right now. Supplies swinging gigantically in favor of the Protoss at the moment. 13 SCVs going down. There's some serious pressure being applied to the 3rd of Astrea, but I mean, listen, with 5 bases laid down right now for Protoss already, and the SkyToss transition set up, I think things are maybe looking okay, but he's got a lot of damage done. I think, if he takes a catastrophically bad fight here, things could swing back in the other direction. Yeah,
Liberation has arrived. We have Widowmines on top of the ramp as well. Astrea does pull back. As you mentioned, he is being overwhelmed. The mass gateway army is slowly breaking through. Mute, he's so close to breaking the natural.
Yeah, I mean, he's really continuing to push forward here. The Liberators are locking things down. A little additional supply sort of fluctuate or push from Astrea's production does help, but things are looking somewhat dire for Astrea right now. There are so many Zealots to deal with.
Yeah, it's basically purely Zealot and 3 Immortals. There's no anti-air. The Liberators, they're going to be left alone. They can siege up, and it looks like eventually Astrea will deal with this, but as you mentioned, has Mute done enough? 20 SCVs go down.
Yeah, and we're looking at like a nearly 30 worker advantage right now for Protoss. Or rather, no, 20-something.
Yeah, exactly. He has a massive economic lead. Stalkers, they come in to reinforce. Finally, Mute has some anti-air. He can focus down those Liberators. And even though Astrea is working on Ghosts and working on a more refined army, he needs more time.
Yeah, absolutely he does, and I don't know if Mute's going to give him that time. He continues to push into the main here now. Generally speaking, Astrea's economy is still sort of functional with what's going on here, but he taps out.
GG, well played, Mute. He breaks through the natural, breaks into the main, and Mute will take down Astrea 2-1.
Yeah, definitely not the result I think a lot of people were expecting. Now, I guess when you do think about those expectations, you think about Astrea playing Protoss, but... so on the bottom side of the bracket here, looks like Shin, I think, is going to face Mute now. Yeah, so Shin versus Mute, and on the top side, we've got Byun versus Shameless.
Yeah, we do see Shameless was able to bring down Rebellion 2-1, and we do have, of course, Mute taking down Astrea 2-1 as well. When it came to that final game state, again, Mute, he was so... I mean, he had to be really assertive. The reality was that Astrea was getting a more complex and more well-refined army. If Astrea was given time, he would have snowballed out of control. Instead, I mean, as your chatter mentioned, Mute, he just doubled down on purely gateway units. May have lost all of the Colossus, but he had a sea of Zealots and Stalkers that were able to break through nonetheless, and yeah, barely clutch out that win.
Gateway man OP.
Yeah.
That's a great quote. Okay, Shin, I suppose, will probably... Oh, okay, I requested to join his party. That might not be the correct thing, but okay. Anyway, we're there.